Now Sam Edmonds wandered into the studio. And Sammy, very nice to see you. Lots to talk about. But this Ben King situation's getting weirder. The 47 goals in a team that struggled all year, not in the top 10 in the BNF. Crikey.
Good morning to you, Gary. Good morning, Tim. Yeah, that is a surprise, isn't it? Not top 10 in the BNF.
Top 10.
Out of contract.
Top 5.
Out of contract at the end of next year as well. So watch this space on Ben King. But
what was the Coleman medal winner, by the way? Wasn't much more than 47.
Wasn't many more than that, was it? The Harry Mackay kicked in the end.
Unbelievable.
No, it was 55, was it, in the end?
I
think it was
mid-50s.
Yeah. I think it was about that. You would think, though, that if they seriously wanted to keep him, they would have actually given him the best and fairest, wouldn't it? And the captaincy and thrown that in as well.
Yeah, it's a big signature. We've spoken about that quite a bit over the last few weeks, Gary, but there's a bigger signature floating around at the moment. Well, it's already on the paper at the Brisbane Lions, but gee, I tell you what, if Lachie Neale's departure from Fremantle came as a surprise, his potential return to the Dockers is a major shock. Just a huge story from Channel 7's Ryan Daniels out west that Neale could be looking to break his contract for what would be the second time in 4 years, mind you, and request a trade back to the Dockers. Now, I heard you play Danny Daly earlier on radio, Tab Radio, saying that a statement was due out from the Brisbane Lions by it this afternoon, but that it was all news to them. So, to recap, it's Neale and his wife Jules. They're pregnant with the couple's first child. It's a daughter due over summer, and it is said to be a lifestyle decision. So he left Fremantle with a year to go on his contract at the end of 2018. Now, the deal to Brisbane saw the Lions give up pick 6, 19 and 55. They gave up a lot. They got Neale and pick 30 back. It was a 5-year contract worth around $800,000 a season at the Lions. So he's got 2 more years to run there at a club where he's won a Brownlow and the past 2 best and fairest. So what happens from here? This could make for an incredibly fascinating 3-way trade, obviously, involving Carlton, Fremantle and Brisbane. The Blues want Chera. They have pick 6. Could that happen? And then Freo perhaps even give up 6 and their existing pick 8 to the Lions, which is a lot, but they get Neale and perhaps the Lions pick 14 back the other way. So that would effectively mean the Dockers have given up Chera and 8 for Neale and 14. And then you've got the other side of it. How do the Lions actually approach it? That's going to dictate a lot of it, isn't it, Tim, given that They've got, will they absorb the loss? Could they move Zach Bailey, for example, in the midfield? Cam Rayner comes back from injury and take the picks to the draft? Or do they get dangerous in the trade period now and look to strike, given they're in the flag window and they need to fill the Neale void?
Garrett, do you reckon this pulls on the emotional heartstrings of the Brisbane Lions? Because if you request a trade back and it's for family reasons, okay, which we think this is all about. His wife comes from Perth. They're about to have a child. COVID, obviously, has interrupted everyone's lives. You can't travel interstate, whatever. How much, as a football club CEO, you're Greg Swan sitting there right now, how hard do you go with this?
In my humble opinion, this is over. He's gone. No, hang on. Sorry. If, as is reported, he wants to go home, then he will be going home. That's the way I read it. And there's enough instances. When's the last time?
Dane Beams is the example. Dane Beams wanted a trade. He went there and then he wanted out again. Quite simple. For personal reasons.
I think they were quite happy to see that be facilitated, though, in the end.
But the motivation was the same, wasn't it? In the sense that it was a family reason that Dane Beams wanted to be traded.
Yeah, more extreme. More extreme. But
so when is the last time?
How hard do you play, though? This is the point, from the CEO's perspective. Like, okay, we get it. You want to go home, and your wife's wants to be close to a family, that type of thing. But hang on a minute. We gave a lot up to get you. You're a great player. You're an important player. You're part of the building block of what we think will be maybe potentially a premiership in the next couple of years. Mate, we don't want to give up on you.
That's right. You're all those things while you're in a good frame of mind. You're all those things. You're the building blocks for our premiership. You're a great player. You're a great influence around our club. Rider, why you want to be here. When someone makes their mind up and says, I'm heading back, for whatever reason, family reasons, then this is just my take. I might be 100% wrong. But history tells me that just gets done.
Yeah.
And they acquiesce and they say, okay, yes, we'll let you. But on the other side of the equation, we gave up a lot to get you. We want a lot back in return because we actually believe you're a better player now than what you were when you left Fremantle.
So Greg Swan won't comment. Tim Lawrence, Lachie Neale's manager, won't comment. The Fremantle Dockers won't comment. So we can only speculate from here. But that statement due out later on this afternoon, according to Danny Daly, the GM of football. So Luke Parker's management, Gary, have struggled to find a rival bidder to use as leverage in their dealings with the salary cap tight Swans. Is this their avenue? Like we've said, Parker's chasing a 4-year deal worth around $700,000 a season, which the Swans haven't been able to meet. So whether Luke Parker's even keen on a move to Brisbane, we don't know. Tom Mitchell's the other one, open to a trade out of Hawthorn. The Hawks are keen on keeping both Mitchell and Gunston unless an offer that's simply too good to refuse comes their way. Now, that appeared highly unlikely, perhaps until now. So do they get involved in a deal with the Brisbane Lions if Brisbane look to bring an established star midfielder back into the club?
Has Tom Mitchell stated that he would entertain the idea of a trade?
No, nothing publicly from Tom Mitchell.
No, but behind the scenes,
Tom Mitchell's,
it's acknowledged that he would move on if the right club came to him.
Correct.
With the right set of circumstances.
Correct.
And what if would Hawthorn move him on under those circumstances, or would they want some? They'd want some unbelievable trade, obviously.
Absolutely. No, I think they're more keen to keep him than otherwise. This is going to be a big reset under the new coach, Sam Mitchell. So unless something stupid comes their way, which is the saying we hear often across the competition, they won't consider that. But maybe something that's simply too good to refuse does come their way. But Brisbane, they've got the whip in hand at the moment.
If you're Sam Mitchell, though, Gary, you're a young coach stepping in for the first time. Okay, you've got pretty much low expectations in terms of what the team may do in the first couple of years, and you get that. You'd entertain the idea, would you not? You'd take that deal and try and get some early draft picks back into the club, and try and set yourself up for a bit of a tilt of it down the track for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think you would if the deal was early draft picks, multiple. They're getting back into the draft. They've got good young kids that've been in there the last year or so. Then. Well, we would look at it. I don't know how Sam's thinking. He might turn around and go, no, I need this bloke to help drive us where we want to go. So,
but you
on
need
the outside, you would.
You always need them, and you always think you need them. And I take it back 12 months, like the Essendon situation with Danaher and Saad. And as a fan of a club, you're sitting there and think, oh, we need these blokes. The best thing that ever happened was that they went and you got the opportunity to get early draft picks in and re-energise your list.
Essendon got their 3 top 10 picks, as we know. Well, the Brisbane Lions have already got 2 first-rounders, 14 and 18. They'll get a king's ransom for Lachie Neale. So they will be locked and loaded in the first round of the draft.
Go again.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, you mentioned Ben King, Gary. Gold Coast, just staying with them. They've contacted Wayne Campbell to replace their outgoing footy manager, John Haynes. We know that Campbell's the former GWS footy boss, left with a year to go on his deal there, and the umpires boss as well. Now, he's the favourite to take the job. He'd reunite with Mark Evans, who is obviously with at AFL House. He has a really good relationship with him, and the current list manager, Craig Cameron, whom he has worked with at the Giants and the Tigers. So no commitment from either party. Campbell's based in Sydney with his family. They're entrenched there, so there's a lot he needs to weigh up from a personal perspective, but the Suns are also giving considerations to restructuring the whole football department like a lot of clubs, but he would be their most favoured choice at the moment.
I wonder if the earliest thing you'll look at if he gets the job is the best and fairest voting. 47 to Ben King, 58 won the Coleman medal.
He's gone down a hole here.
Hang on, 58 has won the Coleman medal and an All-Australian place. All-Australian for Harry. 47 to Ben, can't get the top 10 of the Gold Coast.
They must have thought he got a couple of Joe the Gooses over the back somewhere. Hey, just on further to sort of like movement out there in administration roles, Tommy Brown reported this at the weekend that Brad Scott will be announced as the AFL replacement to Steve Hocking later this week, yes?
That's a firm commitment from Tom Brown. I mean, it was down to the last couple, Brad Scott and Josh Marnie from Essendon. I think Brad Scott has been linked forever. He's been perhaps the nominal choice there, given he has been the head of Football Victoria for a year and a bit now. So has all the qualifications to do it, of course. So it wouldn't surprise if he was formally announced.
So that wouldn't rule out then for the Carlton job. It would rule out Al Clarkson, Ross Lyon, Brad Scott, and Nathan Buckley.
Reports are believed. Yep, exactly. Yep.
So they're going to go about a quiet search now for
it's
the
a
next
30 to 45 day process, they tell us, Tim. So we wouldn't want to hold our breath on this.
No, but then Collingwood did that, and they did it really well over a long period of time. And I think, Gary, did you say they canvassed something like 90 different names or something?
Started with.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's a bit of more urgency perhaps now that we get about the hit trade period. You want to think that you'd have your coach should have some sort of say in what your list's going to look like.
Yeah, but the only important, you've got a list manager. So if we listen to what clubs say, that's their job is to manage the list. The thing that would be most important for them would be, like if you're a prospective recruit to the club, I mean, you do want to know.
Maybe, but Adam Chera's probably his favourite home is Carlton anyway. So maybe players sort of look well off into the future.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Hey, that Michael Christian, the MRO guys, last night cleared Marcus Adams of any wrongdoing in that collision that saw Cody Waitman subbed out of the dramatic semi-final on Saturday night. Now, Cody Waitman, you touched on earlier, was withdrawn with what the Dogs have called a quote-unquote head knock. Now, the Docs are obviously under pressure. A decision needs to be made quickly on the ground. It remains unclear whether he was diagnosed with concussion, Cody Waitman. So if he's concussed, he's obviously not eligible for the prelim against Port Adelaide under AFL rules. Now, Luke Beveridge, the coach, he wouldn't be drawn after the game on whether there was any grey area here for Waitman to play. It's a bit like Collingwood's situation mid-season. Jordan Roughead, Nathan Murphy, they both passed their concussion test, their SCAT examinations, despite being withdrawn by the Pies medicos in round 9. Now, Collingwood then, subsequent to that, failed in their request with the AFL to have the two players played the next week. So it all points to the Dogs making contact with the AFL's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Peter Harcourt, here as well. So can't get clarification from the Dogs at this stage. They're out west at the moment whether he was tested for concussion. You assume he was, Cody Waitman, but whether he was actually diagnosed with concussion.
Jeez.
Because this is a real watch. He's so influential, this kid, as well, in terms of their best 18, best 22 setup. So they've landed in Perth, 4 o'clock your time, Gary. Marcus Bontempelli was scanned over there on arrival. He was sore, 5-hour flight. Doesn't sound as though there's anything structural. The club are going to put out something shortly, but there is some soreness there, so we'll await the specifics of that. He's in a race against time, the captain at the moment, Marcus Bontempelli.
It may just be a case of symptomatic, though, too, like how he's feeling over the next few days before they try and push, if they do, in fact, try and push a little bit harder for it.
And obviously this is the one where you're perhaps more inclined to take a risk with a player of that calibre, I would have thought, depending on how he feels. It's a fascinating state of play for the Western Bulldogs with Cody Waitman and Marcus Bontempelli leading into the weekend.
Cody Waitman is an absolute minefield there. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. Tim's talked about it a lot, about doctors and, And I think we all have the greatest of respect, but the pressure that they'd be under in a preliminary, or now the prelim, at least the prelim won't be an issue because you got the week off.
It shouldn't matter, though, should it? Like, it shouldn't matter at what... Like, when we're talking about this particular part of your body, it shouldn't matter about what time of the season we're actually having the conversation.
That was the whole point, until such time as the final start.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So a lot of pressure on the AFL here and Dr. Peter Harcourt and the exemption that he may or may not provide. Yeah, I know you talked about Stephen Baker earlier. He's a St Kilda best and fairest winner, but that hasn't stopped him from, lashing his former club for throwing its support behind COVID vaccination. So the Saints hit the socials recently, showing their players getting their jabs and declaring we all have a role to play and urging people to consult their GPs for vaccinations. But Baker, Gary, played 203 games for the Saints. He replied to a club Facebook post with anger. He said, "There's the wooden spoon for next year. This is a disgrace, coercing fit young athletes into jabs they don't need. This is also kids that look up to them or want them so rich so-and-sos can make more money. The club should be ashamed of themselves, in my humble opinion, that is." And he went on to urge all players to band together and refuse the vaccination.
You can't drop that bomb on us and then walk out the door and leave us to deal with it. This is going to be a topic that we spoke about last Thursday, and it's going to go and go and go. Good on you, Sammy. We will be hearing from you throughout the day, given all of those different storylines that you're following. Thanks so much for your contribution.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sammy.
Sammy for McCafe Coffee. Add a McCafe Coffee to your breakfast for chances to win the Monopoly game at Macca's.